Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Pastor Mary, and I am the pastor of First United Methodist in Mendota. You all have been watching our videos. Today, we're going to try Zoom out. This is the first time either one of us have done this, so we're going to do our best. Before we begin and I introduce you to who I have here, I just want to remind you that we are collecting drawings from children that we're going to mail out to our elderly folks. Our address is 100 East 6th Street here in Mendota, 61342. And then we're also looking for people to sign up to help with phone calls, with sending out cards, and with running errands for those among us who can't leave their homes, especially during this time, and who need a little extra assistance and need some hope with the isolation. So with me today, I have one of our college students. I have Cheyenne West. You want to say hi, Cheyenne?
Hi.
Cheyenne attends Olivet Nazarene, and she actually grew up in our church, and she has a wonderful heart for mission, and she just came back from a mission trip. She was able to give a brief presentation, at our church, but we had lots of questions and things we wanted to do with her and ask her about that we haven't been able to because of the quarantine. So I thought I would do that with her today. So Cheyenne, just to kind of give us a little bit of background, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I go to Olivet Nazarene University. I'm a zoology major with a psychology minor, and I'm hoping to be a vet in the future. At school, I found out about this mission trip through one of my professors. It was actually like a last minute trip that they had planned that just like came up, and he announced it in class, and I was like, I gotta do this. And so I applied for it the next day and I got it. So yeah.
That's awesome. So one of the running jokes that we have at our church is that I have been open with folks about how I got into ministry. I actually started school as a zoology major and found out that even though I love animals, I don't like animal science. And a lot of that is because there's a lot that goes into animal science, into zoology. So do you want to talk a little bit about what people do when they get a zoology degree? What is it that you study?
So in a zoology degree, we study a lot about like the evolution of animals, like their behavior. It kind of just depends on what kind of classes you want to take. At Olivet, we offer, it's called ornithology. And so if you really like birds, you can get into that. But I'm more of like trying to learn about why animals do the things they do and like their anatomy and trying to make them better. So like I would be looking at taking more classes in animal behavior and like comparative anatomy and stuff like that. And then the psychology minor is just trying to understand like how the brain works, and especially like if you're a veterinarian, you need to understand like why people are so sad when they put an animal down and stuff like that, aside from like the obvious reasons. So yeah, really excited. It's gonna be super fun.
That sounds really interesting. You have a heart for mission, and I've been told that that came from something we do here at the church. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it that the church does that got you interested in ministry?
So when I was in the confirmation class, I actually took part in, it's called the Henderson mission team at church, and this will be my 5th year going this year, so I'm super excited about that. I kind of just went and like seen how you can impact so many other people through like sharing the gospel and through your actions, and I was like, this is great, and you get to see new people and new things. So I don't know, I kind of just, ever since then, I was like, let's just go on every opportunity we can, you know?
And for those of you who maybe don't know what the Henderson mission is, there is a settlement in Frakes, Kentucky, which is along the Appalachian Mountains. That's called the Henderson settlement. This is a United Methodist settlement for an impoverished community there. It started, I want to say 100 years ago. Does that sound about right? 100
Yeah.
years ago? With a school and an orphanage, and they have built up from there. They offer all kinds of different kinds of ministries and opportunities for the community that lives there long term, as well as for churches to come and participate on mission trips. And our church sends a team every year. It used to be run by 2 pastors before me, Pastor Mike Morrell I have not had the opportunity to attend this yet because it runs into our annual conference, which is an obligation that I also serve to the bishop as a clergy person. So I haven't been able to go, but the lay person who runs it now is Kathy Burke. So hi, Kathy. I know you're watching these videos, and hopefully we'll do an interview with Kathy about Henderson. But that's just some background on that mission trip because that inspired Cheyenne to do the mission trip she does now. The trip she did recently was not a trip that's directly to other people. It was a trip for animals. It was a creation care trip. Could you explain to us why creation care is part of the mission process and why it matters?
So down there, kind of like if you mission towards the environment and towards creation, you're basically ministering to the people because they care so much about the environment that they live in. When we went down there, it was like completely different than down here. Like it's still in the States, but down there they don't use plastic straws, they use all cardboard straws. They like when I say I would not like a plastic bag, they just smile and they're like, oh good, like thank you. Like they get so excited about that kind of stuff, and then just like seeing them able to interact with, like, we are technically tourists, like kind of like in that setting, like we're missionaries, we're tourists, like so they might not see us as like natives, so they might see us as like, oh, like they don't care about the environment, they're just here to vacation or whatever. And that's like one of the things that we wanted to show, like we're not here to vacation, we're here to help you, we're here to serve you, we're here to spread the gospel. So that was one of the things that like was so important down there. But creation care is basically just showing like every like other Christian that you don't have to minister to people in order to be like aiding God. Like you don't have to do that. And this is like my first time going on a mission trip like this. I've always gone on mission trips that minister to people, and so being able to minister to animals and like being able to show other people how like God loves everything. God created this. So being able to show everyone that like, oh,
That's
being
my
able to
cat,
show
Stella.
people
Yeah.
that like this is another way you can minister to God besides just reading the Bible and talking to people.
Mhm. Yeah. One of the things that has changed in our interpretation of the Genesis story, when God creates Adam and Eve in that story, he gives humankind dominion over creation. And it used to be that we interpreted dominion as dominance, right? So we got to be in control of everything. We were kind of the top of everything. Nowadays, when we read that passage and we teach that passage to our clergy and to our churches, we teach that dominion is actually stewardship, that it's our job to steward and care for the creation because it ultimately doesn't belong to us, it belongs to God. And because God cares about the creation, we are called to do the same. I'm not sure how many people in the realm of Christianity understand it that way. You know, I didn't used to know a whole lot of Christians who did. That's not the tradition that I was raised in. Not that we didn't care about creation, it was just kind of a second tier in a way. And as I became an adult and changed traditions, I found that there are lots of Christians who think about the creation that way. But you know, with climate change and with all the other things that are going on, pollution rates and things like that, sometimes I think we forget that God cares about the world around us. So I think creation care is incredible. There was something that I saw in your pictures that I think you were talking about was kind of grossing people out. It was when you were cutting up the birds. You want to explain what that was for?
Yeah, so that was one of the things that like came up last minute after we had like planned the trip. One of our things got canceled, and so this came up, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to cut up some birds?" And we were like, "Sure." So, being like a zoology major and stuff like that, like I'm really interested in seeing like everything that goes on inside the animals. So, um, they were already dead, so I mean, I was okay with it. But they most likely like died of natural causes, and we kind of wanted to see like one why, wanted to like further investigate that. But we also were able to cut off their wings and then we put them on like cardboard things and like pin them down and then put them in borax so they would be set, and then they would basically like mummify them. um, and then they like the organization that we worked with, it was called the Bird Sanctuary, the Florida Keys Bird Sanctuary. They have like a little museum type thing in their learning center and animal hospital where they have like displays of different animals. And then they also have like educational things that they like show kids all the things about birds and like how to help the environment, how to help birds and stuff like that. And so like being able to show the kids like the feet, the head, the wings of the birds really helped to get the point across of like, this is God's, well, not necessarily that they portray it as God's creation because they don't probably want to push that on people, but like being able to show kids that like these are the things we're trying to protect, like this is why we're a sanctuary, like we're trying to help these birds. So trying to like show kids that like don't do these things because it hurts the birds and stuff like that. So yeah, that was one of the reasons why we went there and did that. And then the other like half of our group did this thing with monofilament. It's basically like fishing line. That's like a really like important like thing that impacts the ocean, and especially like when you walk along the ocean you can see it entangled in all the trees and stuff, and that was really like upsetting to see, and not many people see that because they don't really go towards those parts of the ocean. But it was just really important that like to show people like that we come back and like you have to recycle that fishing line or else that's what happens to it. And so that was another thing that we did there.
Wow, that's really cool. It almost reminds me of like taxidermy that you were doing, is preparing them that way. And so you said it goes to a museum there is?
Yeah, there's like a small little museum that you can walk into when you go to their animal hospital.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. And then you spent a day with a dolphin rehabilitation center. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That was
oh, go ahead.
so that was like the day that I was like most excited for because dolphins are one of my favorite animals. But basically, we went and they kind of showed us around the facility and showed us the dolphins, and they had like 26, I want to say, dolphins, might be more than that. That they all were either born there or brought into the sanctuary. Um, and then they feed them and everything was like voluntary, so the dolphins didn't have to do tricks if they didn't want to. They don't have to go anywhere they don't want to. um, and then so after we seen the dolphins, they told us that they needed help painting the handicap ramp that leads up to the entrance and exit of the facility. So we spent all day painting that ramp. This is a very long ramp, but it got done, so we were really happy to do that for them.
Yeah. So what would bring a dolphin into the rehabilitation? So you said some of them were born there, but some of them were injured and brought in?
Yeah, so one of the dolphins that's like pretty famous there is called, his name is Jax, and he actually is like missing part of his like dorsal fin, and then he has some scarring on his back, and so that's like one of the reasons he was brought in, because he was injured. I think they said there was a shark attack, but I'm not 100% sure. So that's just like one example, but some of them like washed up or were found, or some of them, this actually happens a lot when they try to like release animals. They release them, but then they just come back because they had it so good at the sanctuary, so why would they want to leave? So that happens a lot, and then they just come in and they have babies, and then it just gets bigger and bigger. So
So why is it important for, you said that the tricks are voluntary, so unlike someplace like like a Sea World or something like that where the tricks are mandatory, they're voluntary, but why is it important for the dolphins to do tricks?
So the dolphins, like in the wild, they would try and they would go hunt and do stuff like that, and that would be like their mental simulation. But not having that, because they don't have to catch their food, obviously, it's just given to them. They need to find other ways to like stimulate them. And so doing tricks is one of those things that they're able to stimulate their minds and just obviously, I mean, you'd get a little bored just swimming around in a little tank all day. It's not necessarily a tank, but so that's one way that it's so important to like stimulate them and to make sure that they're still getting healthy and still maintaining like a good body weight. Also when they do tricks, they also get these like vitamins. I'm not exactly sure, like they didn't really elaborate on like what that was, but I do know that like every time they were doing a feeding, they were doing tricks, dolphins would get vitamins. So yeah.
Very cool. And then on your third day, you talked about you went to go, and I can't remember what it was that you were looking at, but you had to cut down some overgrowth on a fence, and you guys ran into like a python or something like that. Is that right?
We didn't run into any snakes that day, which is good because that's no bueno. But that was actually Friday. We went to the Everglades, and it was really fun because I've never been to the Everglades before, but we had to travel, I think it's like 2 hours to get there. So we went to the Everglades and we watched like a little educational video, and we went to the Nike missile base, which is in the Everglades. And it's like a historical site that they tour sometimes. And we got the opportunity to learn from a botanist that works there. So that basically she knows everything about plants. So she kind of taught us like a bunch of stuff about like the plants that grow in the Everglades and some of the projects they were working on there. And then, so we got to cut like wooded areas and grass areas around the buildings that like encompass this base. So that was really fun. And she kind of like told us, watch out for this, that's poison ivy, or watch out for this, that's poison wood. So we were all like pretty like walking around on our tiptoes because we didn't really want to step on anything that was poisonous. But yeah, it was really fun. We didn't really get to see any animals there, but we did go on like a hike after lunch, and we seen some alligators, some heron, a lot of fish. So that was really exciting.
That is pretty cool. Was there anything else you wanted to share with us about your trip?
One thing, like after this trip, like I am so passionate about this. Like even before this trip, I was just so passionate about creation care and just making sure that like you lessen your waste, because that is a huge thing, and like not many people realize how much the ocean does for us. It provides an enormous amount of oxygen for us, and so if the coral reefs die, then the amount of oxygen that we breathe obviously won't be there anymore. So it's just super important to make sure that like if you're a fisherman, that you cut up your fishing line and like make sure that you recycle it. And if you don't know where to recycle it, bring it to me because I will recycle it for you. So it's just like simple things like using a shampoo bar instead of a shampoo bottle and not having that plastic bottle, or just not using paper plates and using glass dishes instead, using a reusable water bottle instead of drinking out of a water bottle. Like those are all things that like are super important to the environment, and it's just really, really important that like lessening your waste is just so important. Like I can't drive that enough. So yeah.
So waste reduction is the big, hi Stella. So waste reduction is the big thing, even more so than you'd say even like reusing or recycling. It's the waste reduction is the biggest.
Yeah, especially like recycling is important too. Like it's really important to do that as well, but waste reduction is even better than recycling because you're not putting that into the environment. You're not having to put the work into recycling it anymore because you're not using it. So, like some things you can't get waste free, but I mean there's a lot of things that you can that people just didn't realize that you could, like toothpaste. People didn't realize that you can get toothpaste that's waste free. So yeah, that's really important.
Well, thank you, Cheyenne. And if you're interested in learning more, you're welcome to message our church page. Or I'm going to say, if you know Cheyenne already, I'm not going to have folks who don't know Cheyenne contact her. But if you know Cheyenne already, I'm sure she would love to talk with you more about the wonderful things that she did. And the best thing that you can do to aid Cheyenne in creation care, it sounds like, is waste reduction. So if you're interested in waste reduction, that's an easy thing to Google. You can just look online of all the ways, the simple changes that you can do it. For instance, in our home, we are in the process of switching to all solid soap. And so we're trying to get rid of liquid soap, bottled soap, and try and switch all of that over. And we're switching over to, you can even do solid lotion. So like a bar lotion, we're switching over to that too. And the amount of waste reduction just in that, I have been shocked by. Just switching that over. So simple changes like that. There's chewable toothpaste out there in the world that's waste-free, and all kinds of interesting ideas that maybe you hadn't even thought of. So thank you again, Cheyenne, and we will see you tonight with our children's story at 7:15. So have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.